3 horrific true school lockdown stories. Welcome to our channel, the place where we explore the strange, the unusual, and the downright terrifying. I'm your host, Sam, and tonight we're taking a chilling journey into the heart of fear itself. We've got 3 true stories from subscribers just like you, stories that happened behind the supposedly safe walls of our schools. These aren't drills. These are real-life nightmares that will leave you sleeping with the lights on. Let's begin. Our first story comes from Sarah in Ohio. Sarah was a freshman in high school when one ordinary Tuesday turned into anything but. Now Sarah's school was old, the kind with those long, echoing hallways and flickering fluorescent lights that always seemed to hum a little too loud. It was during 5th period, right in the middle of a history lecture, when the announcement crackled over the intercom. Lockdown. Those words, always spoken with an eerie calmness, sent a chill down Sarah's spine. Her teacher, Mr. Davis, a kind older man who always had a cup of coffee in hand, immediately sprang into action. He locked the door, a heavy, reinforced thing that looked like it belonged in a prison, and then he turned off the lights. The classroom, once buzzing with the quiet murmurs of students, fell silent. Everyone huddled together in the corner, the way they'd been trained, fear a tangible presence in the room. Sarah remembers looking out the window in the door, a small rectangular window that looked out onto the hallway. The hallway was empty, but the flickering lights cast long, dancing shadows. And that's when she saw it. A shadow, darker than the others, moving slowly down the hallway. It wasn't a teacher, she could tell. This shadow was too tall, too elongated. It moved with a strange fluidity, like it was gliding over the floor rather than walking. Sarah watched, her breath caught in her throat as the shadow drifted towards her classroom. It stopped right outside the door, and for a moment Sarah could have sworn she saw the faint outline of a hand pressed against the glass. Then, as quickly as it had appeared, the shadow vanished. Minutes stretched into an eternity as the class huddled together, the silence only broken by the frantic beating of their hearts. Finally, after what felt like hours, the all-clear came over the intercom. Mr. Davis, his hand shaking slightly, unlocked the door. The hallway was empty. No students, no teachers, no sign of the shadowy figure that had haunted Sarah's vision. To this day, Sarah can't explain what she saw that day. Sarah's story, while unsettling, is just the tip of the iceberg. Our next story comes from David, a former high schooler from a small town in Montana. David's school was small, just one long hallway with classrooms branching off on either side. It was the kind of place where everyone knew everyone, and the biggest worry most days was acing a pop quiz or who was going to the prom. But one cold winter day, that sense of normalcy shattered. David was in gym class shooting hoops with his friends when the fire alarm blared through the building. It was deafening, echoing off the walls, sending everyone scrambling for the exits. But something was wrong. As David and his classmates poured out of the gym, they noticed an eerie silence. There were no teachers ushering them outside, no other students rushing to evacuate. It was as if the fire alarm was going off for an audience of one. The silence was unnerving, amplifying the already unsettling sound of the alarm. David and his friends exchanged uneasy glances. Something was definitely off. They decided to head towards the main entrance, figuring they could get to the bottom of things once they were outside. But as they approached the front of the school, they heard it, a low, guttural growl coming from behind the double doors. It sent shivers down their spine. David, his heart pounding in his chest, cautiously peered through the small window in the door. The sight that greeted him sent a wave of ice through his veins. Standing in the middle of the otherwise empty hallway was a figure. It was tall and imposing, shrouded in shadows, but David could make out the glint of something metallic in its hand. It was at that moment that the alarm abruptly stopped, plunging the school into an even more unsettling silence. Trapped inside with an unknown entity, David and his friends knew they had to act fast. They retreated back down the hallway, their minds racing, trying to figure out what to do. They decided to barricade themselves in the gym, using whatever they could find to secure the doors. Minutes turned into hours as they huddled together, listening intently for any sound, any indication of what awaited them outside. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, they heard the sound of sirens approaching. Our final story takes us to a place where nightmares become reality. This story comes from Emily, a college student who experienced something so horrifying, so unexplainable, that it still haunts her to this day.
I was attending a late-night study session in my dorm building. The library was closed and I had a big exam coming up, so I decided to stay late in one of the study rooms on the 3rd floor. It was a quiet night, the only sounds the gentle hum of the vending machine down the hall and the occasional tap-tap-tap of my fingers on the keyboard.
Around 2 a.m., Emily decided to take a break. She stretched, her back stiff from hours of studying, and decided to grab a soda from the vending machine. As she stepped out of the study room, she noticed something strange. The door to the stairwell at the end of the hall was propped open.
I knew that door was always kept locked, a security measure to prevent unauthorized access to the building. A shiver ran down my spine. I told myself it was probably just another student who had forgotten to close the door properly, but a nagging sense of unease settled in the pit of my stomach.
She continued down the hallway, her footsteps echoing in the stillness, and glanced into the stairwell. It was dark and deserted, the only light coming from the flickering emergency exit sign above. Shrugging off her unease, Emily grabbed her soda and headed back to the study room.
As I passed the stairwell again, I could have sworn I heard a faint noise coming from inside. A soft, muffled cry, like someone trying to whisper for help. My heart skipped a beat. I paused, listening intently, but the sound was gone. I stood frozen for a moment, torn between my better judgment and a growing sense of dread.
She knew she should probably just ignore it, go back to studying and forget she ever heard anything. But the thought of someone being hurt or in trouble, trapped in the stairwell, gnawed at her conscience. Taking a deep breath, Emily cautiously approached the stairwell door.
"Hello?" I called out, my voice trembling slightly. "Is anyone there?"
Silence. Only the faint hum of the building's electrical system answered her. Just as she was about to turn away, convinced she had imagined the whole thing, she heard it again. A soft whimper, this time closer, coming from the top of the stairs. Adrenaline surged through her veins.
I slowly ascended the concrete steps, my hand gripping the rusty railing. The air grew heavy and cold, the darkness pressing in around me like a suffocating blanket. As I reached the top of the stairs, I realized the door to the roof access was ajar. A cold breeze swept through the opening, carrying with it the scent of damp leaves and something else, something metallic and vaguely familiar.
Her heart pounded in her chest as she slowly pushed the door open, her eyes struggling to adjust to the darkness. And then she saw him. Or rather, she saw what was left of him. A lone figure slumped against the wall, its back to her. The figure was still, deathly still, and Emily knew with a sickening certainty that whoever it was, they were beyond help.
I stumbled back, my hand flying to my mouth to stifle a scream, my mind reeling from the gruesome sight. Turning to flee, I raced down the stairs, my mind a blur of terror and confusion. I didn't stop running until I reached the safety of my dorm room, slamming the door shut and collapsing onto my bed, my entire body trembling uncontrollably.
Thank you for joining me tonight on this chilling exploration of fear. These stories, shared by viewers like you, remind us that even in the most ordinary places, darkness can lurk. If you enjoyed these real-life horror stories, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for more spine-chilling content. And if you have a terrifying tale of your own to share, leave it in the comments below. But for now, sleep well, and remember, sometimes the scariest monsters are the ones